It's very natural because of the conditioning, the societal conditioning we are constantly bombarded by, to put a lot of your energy into your work relationships and then show up in your community relationships and show up for your friends. But what's left? Because none of those fill you. They all take from you. But when you flip that and you make sure that you are dedicating yourself, your first energy goes to the people you love, that fills you. It doesn't take from you, it fills you. Then when you move into your friendships, you've got energy to spill out into them, and you have energy to spill out into community and spill out into business. You show up different. Actually, the whole pathway, taking care of yourself physically and mentally gives you energy.
All right. Aloha, everybody. So honored to have you here with my friend Todd. We're going to talk about some self-care, and hopefully you'll learn some important things to strengthen your ability to take care of yourself, which is very important in this day and age. First, I want to introduce Todd and share a little bit about him. He's an amazing man I met almost 7 years ago now. It's hard to believe time has gone by so fast. I've known him all this time and I didn't know some of these things about him. So he's a very fascinating, wonderful person. All right, so Todd lives in New Bern, North Carolina, and has been married to lovely Melanie for 37 years and has 2 adult children. He's an entrepreneur, speaker, coach, trainer, author, and fisherman. He has worked with organizations of all sizes across the United States and Europe over the past 30 plus years, and it's the author of 3 Circles Living. You can find this on Amazon. I highly recommend it. And other books, audios, and personal and professional development programs. He's the leader of the MLT, a global holistic wellness community, which is an organization of thousands of people aspiring to become their best self and make their highest contribution, which I can attest to. His mission is to help people achieve their richest life possible and organizations to bring out the best in people. So a little bit of how I know Todd, and he's had a very positive influence on my life, and I'm so grateful to him. So some of you know my story, some of you may not, but in the winter of 2019, I was referred to hospice with cancer throughout my whole body. I was literally dying. I was petrified. My doctors here in Hawaii said, Tara, we know you don't want to do it, but you might want to try chemo. It might save your life. I was petrified of doing chemo, but at that point, my son was 26 years old and I really wanted to live. So I decided to do chemo. And meanwhile, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, there's this guy you might want to talk to who knows about these supplements, whose wife had a remarkable healing story with. And at that point, I was open to trying anything because I really wanted to live. I was literally dying. I had so much cancer in my lungs. I could not breathe. I could not hold a conversation. I was on oxygen. I was walking with a cane because my left hip was breaking. I was losing weight. It was obvious to me I was dying. I was in really bad shape. And so I started doing chemo and I talked to Todd and I started doing these supplements that I believe, well, I know truly helped me in my healing journey. They really helped to keep my immune system strong. And I did a lot of other things too. And I had a remarkable recovery. In February 2020, I finished chemo and the cancer had shrunk throughout all my body. I still had cancer in my body though. But during that time when I was doing chemo, it was very hard. I almost died a few times. I ended up breaking my left hip and having to do emergency double hip surgery, which was very challenging. So it was a really rough ride. A few years ago, I was told I was NED, no evidence of disease. So against all odds, they call me a miracle because I had cancer throughout my body. And the reason why I chose to do a self-care talk is because this topic has been very important to me and very challenging, to be honest. I'll share some of my vulnerable learnings with this later on in the chat, but Todd has been a wonderful support for me, especially in this last year, because I have learned a lot about self-care, especially with the cancer journey I've been on, but I'm still learning. I have the fear of missing out. I tend to push myself to do crazy things. And a lot of times it's great, but a lot of times I'm depleted. And so Todd has been a dear friend in the last year, talking to me about my patterns and how to shift that. And he's been a great help. And he himself has told me that he is an incredibly sensitive person and he's a giver. So he's had to learn about this as well. So as he nods in agreement. Given that we are going into the holiday season and given that the world is very full right now, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, I was inspired to have this interview to just help people because I feel like Todd, well, I know Todd holds a ton of wisdom around this. So, want to welcome dear Todd. And if you could share a little bit of your process of how you learn to step up your own self care and what your process has been, that would be lovely.
I would be happy to, but first I have to say thank you for even having me. It's an honor for me to be able to be here tonight. And Tara, I think the world of you. You probably know that or can feel that. I met you in a very dark place for you, but I imagine you were quite a light before all that took place. But I have such incredible admiration for how you have shined and how you continue to live life in such a way that you are such a model for other people. It's just really cool. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's just the truth, and that's what you tend to get from me is the truth. It's not always popular, but it is the truth. My story is really long, but short story is my self-care journey really began in 1991. And my path to that was, I don't have great genetics. I had a lot of physical health challenges. Also struggled with very low self-worth, which is quite a popular thing. Not that everybody talks about it, but something that, that's been part of my journey my whole life. I've got the anxiety gene, which you have to pay attention to. And I was living very destructively. And then I met this amazing woman who I guess saw something in me that I certainly didn't see. It was a few years later, we met 39 years ago. I call her my girlfriend bride. And then we got married 37 years ago this November. And it was a couple years into our marriage and I was building a business. And in that process, I was destroying everything else that mattered. My health was getting progressively worse. I was ignoring my family, and I had an aha moment one morning. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm ruining everything that matters to chase something that I would give back. It doesn't really make any sense. And I set on this journey to try to figure it out. And the first place I went to was taking care of my physical self. That was the first thing that I did. And that was just the beginning. And, the term self-care is a very interesting word because someone can think, I'm going to get my hair done. That's self-care. And it is, right? And there are certain things, hygiene is self-care, but that's outer stuff, and true self-care is really wellness. And even wellness is a very interesting word because I think the majority of the population looks at wellness as, well, it sort of means you're okay, you're not sick. That's sort of what it means, but that's actually not what it means. Wellness is actually thriving in every area of your life that matters, which essentially is what I call the three circles. And I had started this journey in 1991 to figure out how to be a better person and serve my family better and take care of myself while also providing. And it was an evolution. It's a process. And then, as things just got better and better and better, and for me in every area, I uncovered for myself that what mattered most to me was helping other people to do better. And then that's been how I've devoted my life since the late 90s. It's just awesome to help somebody. I don't know a better feeling. There's so much pursuit of things that are instant on the planet that might give you a moment of happiness. And let's never confuse happiness with joy. They're different animals. But that moment of happiness is gone relatively quickly. But when you do something good for another person, that is deep and it stays. And so that's what my mission is. That's what I'm supposed to do. And You mentioned in my bio, help people make their greatest contribution. I truly believe from the bottom of my soul that everybody is here to make a contribution in some way, shape, or form, but you can't do that if you are not well. You can't do that. You're too caught up in that, in addressing that, right? It limits, it dampens your light, let's put it that way. So that's a little bit, if that's enough, of how the journey started.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm just going to ask a question because I've seen how you are. You're incredibly generous with information and helping people. You've helped me. I see you help others. And I also see you have very clear boundaries with your own self-care where you'll say, okay, I'm going offline this weekend. Ask me questions by Friday. So because what I'm hearing you say is you love to give and you're so good at it, but how do you make sure you don't overgive? Because that's such a fine line, it seems.
Yeah, well, first you can't even learn to set boundaries until you've clearly gone over them too long. Right? So I always look at it like nobody is ever going to be perfect in anything. Humans aren't perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We are perfectly ourselves, but we're never going to be perfect. It's just my nature. I err on the side of overgiving. That may be rooted in the self-worth issues. I don't know. I don't tend to spend too much time wondering why things are the way they are. I tend to navigate what is and work on being better in what is and control what I can control. But boundaries are such an important thing to set for your self-care. For example, there needs to be space for you to take care of yourself every day. I'm just going to say this because it's true. I believe this is harder for women. I do. And I believe that because you are the natural caretaker. It's in your genes. And so it's really easy to put everybody else first and not think about the fact that putting someone first and helping them, that's like the golden egg, but you're the goose. And if you don't take care of the goose, sooner or later, there's no more golden eggs. Even my wife knows in the morning, right? There's this space of time that is, I have to get centered. I have to take care of me in order to serve better, right? That's how I see it, right? So self-care is a selfless act in this capacity because it allows you to show up better for others. But going to your boundaries question, because again, I'm sorry, I can't answer a question in one word, a few words, not how I'm built. But
All good.
I'm very, very sensitive to negativity, and I know that I'll overgive, and so I have to be purpose to set boundaries. I work with a lot of people, many, many, many people all the time, and I tell them, here's when you can reach me. After that, don't expect me to respond, but in that time frame, I'll respond. When I get to, a certain time of day, it's a hard stop. And when I get to, like I don't touch social media or respond to anything after Saturday at noon, right? From that point on till Monday, I don't do anything that would draw energy from me. Now, I'm still participating in life and still serving my family and still spending time with my wife, but that's a positive thing, right? That's filling my bucket up too, so that I can be better. But I'm very guarded. Self-care leads to energy. Energy is currency for life, right? Energy is life. And, when people struggle to do things, common thing you hear people say is, I don't have time. Actually, that's not true. You don't have energy. If you had the energy, there would be more than enough time. Yeah, you could say that sometimes it's prioritization and planning and some of these other little things, but it really comes down to energy, and energy is life. And then that leads to freedom to participate fully. And I've gotten very good about setting boundaries, but I wasn't always that way. It was experience, right? Knowledge is nice, but it's not wisdom. Knowledge and experience, that's how you get wisdom, right? That's how that pathway goes.
Love it. Thank you. And so what I hear you saying is that you have very firm boundaries of when people can get in touch with you and when you go on social media. But I'm also curious too, because some of us are learning to tune into our bodies and our minds for when we are starting to get depleted. Like during those windows of times when you are available, do you ever notice that you do start getting depleted? And how do you tune into that? Like, what are the signs that, oh, I'm starting to give too much, or I'm getting a little exhausted? Just curious how you tune into that for yourself.
So that's a great question, and you already gave away one of the answers, right? So you pay attention, right? Pay attention to if you're feeling excessively fatigued, you've overdone it somewhere, you're missing something, right? So it's going to be a hole in self-care, right? Whether it's you're not resting enough, you're not hydrating enough, you're not getting the right substances in your body, you're not actively doing things that feed your soul. It's sort of a mind, body, soul kind of thing. And you've got to feed all of them all the time, right? Here's a basic concept: nourish, cleanse, and protect. You do that with your body, you do that with your mind, you do that with your soul. and it nourishes you, it fills you back up. But fatigue, if you're irritable, you find yourself irritable, you find yourself overreacting, you find yourself just feeling a little despondency, having a hard time finding joy, find yourself looking at things negatively, those are all signs. They're all, they're like symptoms, right? So that's the symptom. Now you gotta look into, okay, what's the cause of this? And, often, right, given the pressures in life, we'll just caffeine up and push through it, right? That's not a good idea. There are certainly times when you have to overdo, right? That's the nature of life. There are seasons, there are cycles, there are times, but it can't be your way of life. If it's your way of life, you will burn out, and things, your duration of productivity, your duration of participation will be much less, right? Like you mentioned FOMO earlier. Can I talk about that for a second?
Please go for it. Very
So
relevant.
the fear of missing out, not doing what's best for your being because of the fear of missing out. So first, right, if we look at things practically, no one can do everything, right? That you can't do everything, especially someone who sees how much great things there are you can do. You still have to minimize the fact that it's impossible to do everything all the time. That's not a thing, right? So a way to handle fear of missing out is to flip the fear. In other words, flip the fear to fearing something else. In other words, if you fear missing out and that makes you overdo, recognize what's the cost of overdoing. The cost of overdoing in time is it's literally dimming your life force, right? It's reducing you. That's something to fear. Fear the effect of giving in to instant things, because in the long run, it's one of the principles that I operate by. I will never sacrifice anything in the long run for a short-term benefit. I will never do it. It's a losing game. It's always going to be a losing game. And, so that's how I deal with that is I operate from mindsets, right? Because in everything you do, your mindset has to be first. Because even if you think about something you want to pursue, you have to have the mindset to make the commitment to do what's necessary in order to develop the disciplines that will lead to the habits that will lead to the lifestyle, because that's the flow. You can't just get to lifestyle. You can't just get to habit. You have to follow that process, and your mindset is built on your values and your principles, right? And so when you clarify your values, it makes things really easy, because then you can look at something you might fear not doing, right? That fear of missing out, and go, well, wait a minute, does this serve my values? Does this fit into my principles? If the answer is no, then it's not even a question. So it makes decision-making very easy. So that's another kind of a hack for this particular one is you get to a place, the biggest place to get to is that self-care is not optional. Doesn't matter if you feel like doing it, it's not optional. Just like, if you have a job, it's not optional that you show up. If you don't show up, there's a consequence, and you have to take that into your own being and recognize that you don't have a choice if you want to be the best human you can become, to make whatever contribution it is that you're here to make. Not that you will know that right now, because that's a process of evolution too. You have to take care of the goose. It's not an option. So That's the way I look at it.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So think long term. I had a situation I just want to share. Just what you just said was very helpful. Where I've had a very busy fall, lots of travel, and I was invited to go on a trip as a mermaid because I swim in a mermaid tail to Mexico, which was an amazing opportunity. But I knew because I have another trip coming up in a few days that it would be a lot for me, and my intuition was telling me, Tara, don't go, don't go. It'll be too much. But I was like, no, I want to swim with dolphins and whales and course, I did end up going, and when I got back, I was incredibly depleted, and I won't go into all details, but I was seeing, oh yeah, my intuition was warning me about this, and I like what you said about looking at the big picture because that full self-health is, and it was a big lesson for me of listening with the FOMO too, of yeah, the daily nurturing of the self. So thank you for that. That's very helpful.
That's proof that you know, right? That's actually proof that you know, right? You knew, but you just chose to ignore it.
Never again. Yes. You can remind me of this. You all can remind me of this. I did want to ask you a question too, as we are going to the holiday season and just in general, people are very busy these days. And you've talked about this already a little bit, but if you could talk in more detail during busy times, how to maintain that self-care when there's so many different invitations and how to make sure you're really nurturing that need for self-care during busy times.
It's a great question because while it's very relevant for holiday times, there are lots of other times it's just as relevant, right? It could be relevant on weekends, for example. It could be relevant on any travel. It could be relevant in lots of different ways. Again, I go back to it's not an option. So first thing I want to say is I'm not a saint. I like to have fun and I can have some fun. And however, one thing that I never put down, and it doesn't matter if I'm on an island having fun for a week and maybe imbibing a little bit more and having foods I wouldn't normally eat and just having all kinds of fun, you will see me every morning doing my routine, getting up, spending some quiet time in gratitude, filling my head with positive and encouraging and centering things and having prayer and journaling a little. And then I will exercise and I will hydrate and I will put the right nutrients in my body. I will do all of my self-care routine no matter what. And then I might go, be a nutcase for the rest of the day because that's what I'm doing, which makes it, makes my mornings a little harder, but I pay that price because it's not about do I feel like it or not. It's not optional. I can't show up, right? I mean, I was blessed with the anxiety gene and a tendency towards depression. And I'm more days, and I talk about this in Three Circles Living. If you think about Winnie the Pooh, I don't get to wake up like Tigger. I wake up like Eeyore more often than not. And you can't allow how you feel to dictate how you show up in life, especially if you have a servant's heart and you're a giver, because everywhere you go, you're leaving a footprint, you're leaving an impact. Every person you touch, whether it's in the convenience store or at the library or in your workplace, you're leaving something everywhere you go. And I look at it like a personal responsibility that I need to show up for my wife. I need to show up for my family. I need to show up for the people I'm going to interact with. I need to show up for the people that I work with. It's not about how do I feel when I wake up in the morning, but I do know that if I invest in myself and take care of me, that's an act of service in and of itself because I'm doing something I don't always feel like doing. But I do it because that's how I'm going to better show up for the people that matter in my life and for the causes that I work at. And I live by what I call the 5 and 2. But so 5.5 days a week, I do everything right. The other day and a half, yeah, kind of all bets are off. But I still will take care of my self-care, even in the all bets are off windows. That process allows you to consistently become a better version of yourself day after day after day after day. And that's really what we're here to do, right? growth is one of my values, right? Freedom is a value, peace is a value, service is a value. These are things that matter, and we have to show up for what matters. And that's what self-care is all about. You know, when I started doing this, it was about, and I started just the act of physical exercise, right? Which I don't want to do, right? I didn't want to do that. That's not any fun. It's hard. But I didn't think about it for me. I thought about it for her. I'm doing this for her. I'm not doing it for me. Right. And so that's the way I look at it. I look at it as a personal responsibility. And, you know, it's not my place ever to tell anyone else what they should do. And I'm not any better than anybody else. I'm not smarter. I'm not better. I don't have a better gene pool. I'm just somebody that will consistently do the fundamental things that will help you be better so that you can show up better in service to other people. And that's the same in the holiday season. So the key to the holidays or vacations is to do your routine that takes care of you and then go enjoy it. That's how I look at it.
Keep up the self-care through
Yeah.
busy. Somehow I have a hard time imagining you waking up as Eeyore, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, that's because you see me after I've woken up. There's only one person in the world who knows what it's like for me, and that's my wife. That because she, you know, she's lived with it our whole marriage.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you for transforming that. That speaks volumes, really. I wanted to ask you about energetic boundaries. And I know we talked briefly about that recently in a message, but yeah, interacting different people that might necessarily drain your energy, or you know what I'm asking. So if you could talk about energetic boundaries, that would be lovely.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that because it's crucial for me. I'm super sensitive, and I think most people are relatively sensitive to bad energy. You know, someone with bad energy walks in a room, you know it right away. You can feel it. And from a daily perspective, I avoid people with bad energy. If you're someone who is negative or constantly critical of people or disrespectful of people, once I know that, you're not in my world. Right? You're just not, because again, I look at it as a responsibility. I have to take care of my energy because that energy is too important to the people I interact with and that I'm serving in my life. So that's part of something I have to guard. That's guarding my energy. So I'm very conscious of who I spend my time with. If I can't trust someone, I will not spend time with that person. Once they show me that they're not trustworthy, that's it. And personally, I don't give advice, but that's life advice. If someone is not trustworthy, every relationship you have is dictated by a level of trust. The deeper the trust, the deeper the relationship. That's a very simple platform fundamental in life. But I'm also very conscious of what I allow to get into my head. Like, I don't spend a lot of time scrolling on social media. You know, I'm not interested in consuming things that could be deleterious to my spirit, my soul, my energy. You know, tech in general, you have to turn off tech because it is an energy drainer in general. Like, don't go to bed with your phone. That's horrible for you. Minimize the amount of time that, matter of fact, a good exercise for lots of people is put your phone down and go somewhere and see how you feel about that. Like, you know, leave your phone at home and go somewhere. I promise you, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, you feel untethered, right? Which is crazy, right? It's just this little box, right? But you have to limit the things that drain your energy. And the flip side is, and I teach this in 3 circles, you've got to attend to the buckets that fill you, right? So if you think about it, this is a sidebar, but it actually is relevant, Tar, to what you mentioned. If I kind of put relationships loosely in 4 categories: love, friends, community, business, work, however you want to put that. And it's very natural because of the conditioning, the societal conditioning we are constantly bombarded by, to put a lot of your energy into your work relationships and then show up in your community relationships and show up for your friends. But what's left? Because none of those fill you. They all take from you. Your friends, that can be a balance, but we all know there are some friends that drain us, right? Which you have to be attentive to that. Are they giving at all? Or is it you doing all the giving in that relationship? Because if you're doing all the giving, that's not a relationship. That's a contract, right? That's a person who's receiving from you but not contributing. And again, recognizing that all things have seasons, and there's times when you do have to be the one that's showing up because you're needed. That's part of giving. But if it's the normal state of things, but when you flip that and you make sure that you are dedicating yourself, your first energy goes to the people you love, that fills you. It doesn't take from you, it fills you. And then when you move into your friendships, you've got energy to spill out into them, and you have energy to spill out into community and spill out into business. You show up different. Actually, the whole pathway, taking care of yourself physically and mentally gives you energy. And that energy you can pour into your relationships, which require time and attention. A relationship doesn't require things. If it does, it's not a relationship. It's a contract, right? So then you have someone who's energized and then showing up with time and attention in the places that matter. Now you are joyful. You're energized and vibrant and joyful. That's how you can show up in the right way in the planet. That's how I see it. So I'm very guarded in media. Well, I pay very little attention to media because I know it's sensationalized. It's designed to terrorize you so that you become, polarized. That's the whole point. That's what they're trying to do. It's not news. It's agendized information generally, right? There might be a nugget of truth in it, but it's agenda. And I'm not going to not allow that to be something that takes from me so that I can't show up right. Because if I did, especially given my anxiety, I'd be a train wreck all day long. I'd just be a train wreck. And that's not fair to the people I love.
I love that you know that and you act accordingly. Thank you for sharing. So we're nearing the end of our interview here. If you wanted to share whatever last parting gems of wisdom or anything that comes to mind about self-care that we haven't covered, please feel free to share.
I'll just give you kind of a 3-part recipe that's very simple, that if you're purposeful about this every day, it won't happen overnight, but it'll relatively quickly make a difference in how your life is. And that is, 1, take care of yourself physically, and that is the whole wheel, right? You've got to hydrate, you've got to rest, you've got to put good things in your body, and you've got to move your body. None of those are optional. It'd be great if they were, but they're not. There's no magic trick. It's just fundamental stuff that has to be done. Second is, put good things in your mind, feed your mind, nourish your mind. And then the third is something that I call active rest. And so, Tara, part of the how I make sure that I don't get drained is I actively rest. There are things that are active that you enjoy doing, and those should be a consistent part of your life, whether it's swimming in the ocean. For me, it's going out on the river and fishing or crabbing or playing with my dog. No phone, no people, just me in nature, just being. And I'm active, but man, it's so refreshing for your soul. And you have to attend to that, because none of this is anyone else's responsibility. And no one else can do it for us. We're the only ones that can. So if you just did those 3 things consistently, it would make a massive difference within 30 days of how you started to see things. I mean, that's a really simple recipe.
I love that. Thank you. That's so powerful. I was talking with a horse client today because I do equine facilitated learning work about this Hawaiian concept my friend Coyote teaches called Aloha Ma, which is self-reflective love, which has been a very important part of my cancer healing journey, basically, of like learning to turn that love that you give to others and shine it upon yourself. So it feels like you are embodying this concept of aloha ma so beautifully. Thank you.
We all struggle with some measure of, are we worth it? We do. We don't talk about it, but we do. And also there's a tendency to be guilty about taking time, especially if you've got children and you've got these other things. There's a tendency to feel guilty for taking time for you, and recognize that you didn't put that there. That stuff that you feel, you didn't put that there. That's been conditioned, and you can break that and flip that and recognize that you have to do those things. They're not option. And, I didn't feel worth taking care of myself. That didn't stop me from doing it. And it doesn't stop me from still having those feelings, but I don't give to them, right? Feelings don't have to dictate what you do, right? You can logic your way through it. You can acknowledge it and say, okay, that's what I'm feeling. It doesn't make that true. It's just something I'm feeling. I'm going to do this, and it will make a difference.
Beautiful. To conclude this interview, could you share with the listeners, please, where they can find you? The info, when I put this on YouTube, will be in the information section. But if you could just share, where can people find you, Todd?
So I have a website, toddburrier.com. There's a lot of content on that because I have a blog. I'm writing more wellness-oriented stuff now. For years, I did leadership training for companies. I've stopped doing that. My entire focus is the wellness space now. I have a YouTube channel, so I have some videos on YouTube, and I'm on Facebook. And I don't interact a lot, but I do put some content on there. That's really where you can find me.
Great. You have a beautiful website, by the way. I was checking.
Thank you. I didn't do it. Somebody else did it.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. And yeah, I feel like my cup is full and I've learned a lot. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I got to do this. That's the way I look at it. So thank you for providing that.
Well, you do it so well.